Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called The Swarm, written by Zelurka. The swarm had spread through the entire nebula, converting all materials in it into new nodes. Its spectra was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. No wonder the Astrogation Society had uttered that strange and notified the Navy. Preliminary analysis had calculated that the conversion process had taken over 1 billion years, which was a good thing, as all scouting missions had shown its growth to have ended at the outskirts of the nebula. There was no indication that any of neighboring systems had been or were in the process of being converted. Orders from Tau Ceti Central had been clear on that. Analyze the phenomenon, assess its threat matrix, and, if required, contain or destroy. Basic catch-or-kill protocols. They had even authorized some extremely bleeding-edge hardware under the Canada Protocol. Admiral Pierce didn't know what was more scary, the multi-light-year artificial swarm that seemed to be operating under a set constraints, or that there was a black ops department so secret and advanced that it just shrugged and offered to destroy it. The only thing they knew about their special escort was that nothing they had could even scan their hull, even though the ship looked like a standard Kennedy-class frigate. Luckily, the swarm seemed to be in a dormant or housekeeping state still. He had nightmares about a single swarm unit slowly drifting through interstellar space and entering the core systems with no warning. Scans had shown no such instances. It had taken a month, but there was nothing bigger than a ball bearing that had been picked up for a light year out. The nebula had a set boundary. Nothing moved out further from it, and anything drifting in seemed to eventually make contact with the swarm unit that promptly switched over to a resource utilization mode. It was all very slow, and deep scans had shown that there was a slow process of all the units being broken down and the material used to construct new units. An accelerated simulation had sown a mesmerizing churn of units connecting with each other, regenerating, slowly moving through the nebula in waves, rebuilding and repairing itself for millions of years. The science team had muttered something about transcription errors and von Neumann cascades, but they were always spouting off. What mattered was that all findings had shown that the swarm was a stable, self-repairing system that had contained itself in this one particular nebula. As for why, that they could not answer. What was even stranger was that all probes and even scouting missions into the nebula was ignored. Either the swarm was much slower to respond than expected, or even more worrying, it had identified the ships and classified them as something other than a resource. One of the scouts had even gone so far as to pull a unit into its science bay, under the watchful eye of the special escort. One thing Admiralty had confided in private to Pierce was that his fleet and the special escort would also be destroyed if they had to enact the Canada Protocol, which made sense in a chilling sort of way. There was a knock on the door. "Enter, Madame Pettit." Head of the research detachment marched in, extremely excited. Trailing behind her was the head of the artifact inspection team and a very sheepish young researcher he had never met. "And what do I owe this honor, madame? The next briefing is only at 1600 hours. She was technically French royalty and had a knighthood to go with the numerous doctorates. But to save everyone time and hammer home that she was superior in all aspects, she preferred to be called madame. A pain in the ass, but if it works, it works. "There has been an incident and a major breakthrough. I'm sorry, Admiral, but I'm not sure how to describe this." The head of the inspection team opened his mouth, then thought about it and pushed the researcher forward. "I think it would be simpler to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak." Hi." The researcher, a young man with messed hair and stains on his uniform, looked around sheepishly. Pierce, a veteran of raising 3 teenagers, could see what was happening. "Okay, these two seem to have no idea what to tell me, which tells me it has happened fairly recently, and more importantly, that you are involved. Deep breath, and tell me in small words, what did you do?" "Well, sir, We were analyzing some kludge when I noticed some short-range frequencies that were active from what looked like a phased array transmitter.
The kludge?
The swarm unit, sir. It looks a bit like some electrons that were just clumped together for a quick build. Just alien.
Okay.
And I started tracing it, and the patterns looked like a lot like a type of communications protocol. So I reverse engineered it and discovered it was sending a handshake indicator.
Small words, please. Explain handshake indicator. What is your name?
Michael, sir. Basically, it was waiting for a signal back to connect and start receiving and transmitting instructions.
The head of the inspection team raised his hand. Baxter here, sir. He was only supposed to monitor the signals and report on them. Pierce stopped him. Let him talk, please.
Michael swallowed. Well, sir, the protocols were quite straightforward. It was a case of form meets function. It didn't take too long to replicate a response, and once the port was opened, to start a session on it.
A session? You started communicating with it?
Well, sir, we have over 300 years of computer engineering records, as well as other samples from the aliens we've contacted. I was able to access its operating system. Extrapolating from there was surprisingly easy.
So you communicated with the unit? Pierce felt his hair on his neck raise. He could almost see the Canada Protocol frigate monitoring this.
At first I thought so, sir, but it seems they use some type of subquantum communication. I could scan all the nodes from here, and access their telemetry, and even ping the Butler in real time.
The Smedley Butler, a marine carrier, was 5 light years away, on the other side of the Nebula. Even using FTL comms would take a message over 2 hours to reach them. Almost as if on cue, his intercom rang.
Priority message from the Butler, sir. There has been activity in the swarm. The node closest to the ship has transmitted a message in clear text over a radio frequency.
What was the message?
Sir, it said, "Hello, world."
Madame Petit put her head in her hands. Benson looked like he was going to throw up. Michael looked excited.
It was so easy, sir. I didn't think I could reverse engineer the protocol so fast. It was almost like they didn't have any safeguards.
Or that they wanted it to be easy. Your equipment, was it secured?
Obviously, sir. I followed all first contact protocols, as well as every single instruction check and safeguard that I could think of.
And what happened next?
Well, sir, it seems that the nodes and all the ones it connects to have housekeeping routines that take up only 10% of its processing power. The rest seem to be running various emulations and, if I could guess, virtual environments. I was in deeper than I expected, but didn't want to interfere with those. So, I decided to see if I could run some of my own emulations.
Pierce had a feeling he knew where this was going. You decided to run the Doom test.
Oh, you've heard of that, sir? Yes. It is a very popular and powerful method to test compatibility and processing power in an unfamiliar system.
No need to tell me. My brother-in-law is a xenobiologist. One of his team once ran Doom on a continent-wide mycelium network on Sargassus 5. It took 3 months, but it worked.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry, sir, but that is cool. So anyway, I took a bit of trial and error, but I was able to run the emulator using some processing power on a node, and that's when it happened.
He could see Madame Pettit looking pale. What happened, son? Spit it out.
I was able to get it running, and none of the logs showed any issues. So I started a game to check for any discrepancies, and it was my lunch break, and...
And?
I didn't notice it at first, but the second player entered the game.
He could really feel that frigate monitoring the conversation now. A second player? Someone else in your lab?
No, sir. Everything was air-gapping and contained. It was from the swarm. We played about 4 games, then another player joined and messaged me.
It messaged you?
Yes, sir. Doom has an in-player messaging system. It sent me a message.
Oh, shit. Pierce kept his expression neutral and calm. What was the message?
Cool game. Can we play too?
End of story. Story number 2, Picking the Wrong Prey, written by Engletroll. Dropping out of lightspeed in 3, 2, 1. Wow! Brace for impact! A large star cruiser quickly maneuvered with the agility of a fighter plane as it changed its course to avoid the Allied battleship, barely avoiding the hull. That was a close one. Okay, set course for the battlefield. We are too far from the enemy. Captain Harold sipped on his cup of tea as the ship quickly turned its attention to the battlefield below and swooped down like a hawk attacking its prey, still using the inert force of the lightspeed. Incoming message from the SS Hush. That's the one we almost crashed with. The communications operator looked towards him, and the captain gave him a nod, so the alien captain appeared on the screen. Captain Harold ignored him just long enough to give the order, "Attack pattern John Barry 3. Follow it up with Jack Sparrow 17. Should help keep them busy until the rest arrives." Then he turned his attention to the alien. A humanoid that reminded him of a green dwarf with blue braided hair and a bald head with several small horns. "Mind moving your ship out of our drop zone? There are 20 more ships coming in." The alien captain, a Duskin, was about to say something as the next human cruiser flew past him at near light speed. Copying the maneuver he had just performed, and instead of replying or yelling at him, the alien captain let out a scream of panic and tried to duck out of the screen. "Sending you a safe course and location. Wait for the ambush command." Captain Harold cut the communication and turned to the screen. The mission was a simple invasion of a planetary body. His job with the backup force was to attract as much attention as possible and have these aliens focus on him and his attack force. The ground forces were going to attack from the other side of the planet and hopefully make landfall before they could mount a defense. That meant he had to take out as many battle satellites as possible, without them realizing that they were being blinded. On his display, he saw 4 other cruisers drop out of lightspeed and engage the enemy. That made 6, and with a smirk he gave the command, "Commence Operation Stormtrooper." He got the green confirmation signal from the other ships as the enemy felt the battle started to shift. The large human ships that had moved like fighters and delivered serious damage on the larger capital defense ships were now targeting the smaller ships and started to miss. With several near hits and half hits that gave the enemy hope, they immediately started to counterattack, sending in more ships, redirecting the remaining defense force to the battle. Captain Harold watched as all the calculated misses actually hit their intended targets, satellites in orbit as well as ground-based defense bases. "Lamb incoming," the communications officer barked as 4 mock cruisers dropped out of light speed and engaged in battle. They may look exactly like his cruiser, but were in fact just drones with a specific mission. One by one, they were shot down by the enemy, exploding into scrap metal that left a debris field that followed the planet's orbit to the other side, where they blocked the planetary radars from discovering the incoming invasion force. The destruction gave the enemy more hope, and more ships came to engage his force. "Looks like we've got 95% of their defense force in our little engagement," his tactical officer informed him. "Let's lure them to secondary field. Stop kiting them to the secondary fleet and tell them to get ready for the ambush." His communication officer gave him an "aye, sir," as his battle force started to faint and escape with several showing signs of damaged engines. The enemy took the bait and followed in hot pursuit. He watched as the pursuing force came closer and closer to the ambush location, and when they got the coordinates, they all stopped and got in for a final fight. The enemy was just about to attack when the SS Hashoth appeared out of thin air. The Duskin had the best stealth system and jamming system, though they lacked armor and heavy shields. "Defend the SS Hashoth at all costs." Captain Harold barked the order, and all the cruisers immediately engaged, and at least part of his attack fleet dropped in to help with the mop-up. The battle looked more like a swarm of bees buzzing around as blasters, rockets, and projectiles were now used at deadly precisions. Humanity has quickly learned the lesson when it came to space warfare. You have to get in close, because the natural defenses needed for space travel took care of all long-distance weaponry. If a ship needs a shield to protect you from a surprise solar eruption, then a blaster chute from a couple 100 kilometers would be like using a flashlight. And every ship needs plating strong enough to deal with micro-asteroids, so a projectile would be like a pea shooter at long distance and could all be easily detected and avoided. His communications officer barked out some good news. Invasion fleet started, minimum aerial and ground defenses. He saw the last enemy ships being blown up, and he called up the captain of the SS Hashoth. "Captain Shah, I'm sorry about the tone earlier. I thought they had given you our entry coordinates." "No worries. You gave us a scare, though. Somebody mixed up the coordinates. I'm just glad you managed to avoid the collision. So how is the invasion going?" Harold looked over at his reports.
We have broken through their defenses. Most of the landing points are near the slave camps and have already started the evacuation. I just hope that we got there in time. Most are damn meat farms. Captain Shaw nodded solemnly. I'm just glad we found you guys. Most of the other species view Tuscan as a delicacy, and we thought you guys would be the same. Captain Harold got a visual disgusting reaction at the thought of him eating a sentient being. We don't eat people. We call that cannibalism. It is taboo for us. He looked at the transcript chatter and report that came in from the ground assault. Damn, I don't think you have to worry about humanity shifting side either. The reports you gave us were true. These monsters have put humans on the menu. This is not something we wanted to be true, my friend, and I'll be honest. There are those amongst us who are hoping it would be enough to get humankind to become our ally. We need all the allies we can get so that we can be better protect ourselves from the Kinisu bastards. Captain Harold peeked up. Well, they're about to get extinct. Humankind does not take lightly to being hunted and eaten. End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.